It's a strange game we play, isn't it? We spend our lives trying to repair ourselves as if we were somehow broken by default, forever polishing the mask we show the world, trying to look whole, trying to feel whole. But what if I told you something different? What if I told you that your damage isn't the thing holding you back? It's the thing that qualifies you. We've been taught that the strong ones are the ones who never fall apart, that value lies in how untouched we are, that strength is found in composure, clarity, and confidence. But history tells a different story. The people who changed the world, the visionaries, the saints, the creators, the leaders, they were cracked. They were bruised. They were broken in some way. And it wasn't despite that brokenness that they made an impact. It was because of it. That's not what most of us were taught, is it? We're told to hide our wounds, to cover our scars, to put on the clean face, the polished image, to act like we've got it all under control. But control is the illusion, and wholeness isn't what makes us powerful. It's the cracks. I want to be clear about something. When I say damaged, I don't mean careless. I don't mean reckless. I don't mean someone who uses pain as an excuse to stay stuck or to hurt others. I'm talking about someone who has been to the edge, who has looked into the darkness of their own soul and come back trembling. Someone who has learned, painfully, that they are not self-sufficient, that they cannot do life on their own. These are not weak people, these are awake people. Because once you've seen what's really inside you, the fear, the despair, the rage, the grief, and you've lived through it, you no longer pretend, you no longer posture, you become real, you become open, and that is where power lives. See, the universe has no use for the self-made man. That figure who struts through life, believing he pulled himself up by his own bootstraps, that his success is purely his own doing. He's a closed system. He's full of himself. And when you're full of yourself, there's no room for anything greater to move through you. But the damaged person, the broken one, has cracks. And through those cracks, light gets in. Think about water. If you have a perfectly sealed container, water cannot enter. But if there's the smallest opening, it seeps in, fills the space, expands, changes everything. This is how grace works. This is how power works. Not through perfection, but through openings. And damage creates those openings. Here's something important. Being damaged is not the same as being destroyed. A cracked cup still holds water. A chipped window still lets in light. Sometimes that chip even creates a beautiful pattern when the sun hits it just right. Your damage doesn't disqualify you. It qualifies you. Look at the great spiritual figures. Throughout history, Moses' tradition says he had a speech impediment. He could barely talk. And yet he was chosen to be the voice of God to his people. Absurd, right? A man who couldn't speak properly, chosen to deliver the most important message in history. Why? Because he knew he couldn't do it alone, because he was insufficient. And in that knowing, he became the perfect vessel. Or David, a young shepherd boy, too small, too weak, overlooked even by his own family. Yet it was he who became king, because he never forgot where he came from. Even with a crown on his head, he remembered he was just a boy with a slingshot and a heart wide open. Or Paul, once a murderer, of the very people whose message he later preached. Imagine carrying that weight, knowing the blood on your hands belonged to your brothers and sisters. And yet, it was this man, not a clean man, but a changed man, who became one of the most powerful voices in spiritual history. Why? Because he knew he was saved, not by his own goodness, but by something far beyond himself. This is what happens when you're damaged. You lose the illusion of control. You stop believing you're in charge of everything. You realize how quickly life can fall apart. You felt the ground give way. You've reached for something to hold, and sometimes nothing was there. And in that terrifying free fall, You learn something most people never learn. You learn to trust what catches you. This is why the universe chooses damaged people, because they've let go. They've stopped gripping life with white knuckles. They've learned to float. Have you ever tried floating in water? If you tense up, if you try to control every movement, you sink. But if you relax, if you trust the water, it holds you. Life is the same. And damaged people have learned this. Now let's talk about what damage really is. It's not the thing that happened to you, not the addiction, not the abuse, not the failure or the loss. Those are just events. Damage is what happens inside you when you realize those events have changed you. When you admit, I'm not the same person I was, and I can't go back. That moment, that surrender, is the crack. It's what lets the light in. Most people spend their time trying to go back to normal, trying to get back to who they were. But the damaged person knows there is no going back. The old self is gone. And in that space where the old self once stood, something new can grow, something better, not a recovery, a transformation. This is what the universe is after. Not perfection, not performance, transformation. Funny thing is, the people who've never been broken are often the most brittle. They shatter when life finally hits, because they've never had to bend. But the damaged, they've already bent. They've already been reshaped. And they've come back flexible, like old wood that's weathered storms. Strong not because it's hard, but because it knows how to sway. And here's what else happens when you accept your damage. You become humble. You stop being the star of your own show. You realize you're not the director. You're not even the lead actor. You're just one part in a massive, miraculous production. And that realization, it sets you free. Because when you know you're not in charge, you stop trying to control everything. You stop exhausting yourself trying to manage every outcome. You show up, you do your part, and you let go. The ancient Chinese call this wu wei, effortless action. Not doing nothing, but acting without straining, moving without forcing. And you can only live that way after your pride has broken, after life has humbled you. The proud man fights everything, circumstance, people, life itself, but resistance is exhausting. And damaged people, they've learned that resistance is useless, not in a defeatist way, but in a deeply accepting way. They've learned to work with life, not against it. And in that surrender, they gain power. But maybe the most beautiful thing that damage gives us is compassion, real compassion. Not pity, not sympathy, but the deep human connection that says, I see you, because I've been there. When you've suffered, truly suffered, you stop asking why others can't just pull themselves together. You stop judging the struggling. Because you know sometimes trying harder is the exact wrong thing to do. Sometimes the lesson isn't to strive. Sometimes the lesson is to surrender. And when you've lived that, you can help others in ways the untouched never could. But hear this, damage is not an excuse. It's not a license to stay bitter or cruel. If your pain makes you hard, you've missed the point. The person the universe can use is the one who looks at their wounds and asks, what is this here to teach? How can this make me more human? How do I grow from this? There's a story I love. A man goes to a teacher and says, I'm anxious, I'm depressed, I have addictions, I've failed. How can I possibly be of any use? And the teacher smiles and says, you've just listed your qualifications. Because your anxiety has taught you life is uncertain. Your depression has taught you joy cannot be forced. Your addictions have taught you you need help. Your failures have taught you humility. These aren't disqualifications, they're credentials. Just like a seed must crack open to grow, so must we. And what emerges from that brokenness isn't the old self repaired, it's something entirely new. something more beautiful, more real. The people who changed the world, they're not the ones who had it easy. They're the ones who struggled, who failed, who got back up over and over and over again, because struggle teaches what comfort never can. It teaches that you're stronger than you think, that you can survive what you once thought would destroy you, that something bigger is moving through you, even when everything seems lost. And when you finally learn this, you become fearless. Not because fear disappears, but because you've learned fear doesn't get the final word. And here's the magic. When you stop hiding your damage, other people stop hiding theirs. Your honesty becomes a bridge. Your scars become a map. Your story becomes a signal flare. I've been there. You're not alone. This is how healing spreads. Not by perfection, but by presence. Not by answers, but by honesty. The universe doesn't choose you despite your wounds. It chooses you because of them. Because damage creates humility, humility creates space, and in that space, grace moves. So if you're sitting there thinking you're too broken, you're not. You are exactly who the universe is looking for. Not because you're perfect, but because you're real. So stop hiding, stop pretending, stop polishing the mask. You've suffered, you've changed, you're still here. Let the light through your cracks. Let yourself be used, not to be the light, but to let the light shine through you. Your damage isn't the end of your story. It's the beginning of something extraordinary.